How does the new Abattoir of Zir feel? The new XP already being amazing. Just finished a tier 10, 11,600. I mean, I'll just do 2 of these and I should be getting my glyph even further upgraded. Let's jump into a tier 10 and also a tier 8 to compare how it feels right now and talk in total about necro improvements and the whole event as a disappointment or not. Technically, tier 10 is supposed to be equally difficult. Everything below is slightly easier. So if you weren't able to do your respective tier of 1 to 9 yet, you should be able to. Tier 10, when they say equally difficult, means has still the same HP on mobs. So they don't suddenly do more damage or less damage, pretty much. I mean, there's the 20% damage reduction overall through the whole abattoir. But you're essentially, if you could survive tier 10, if you could damage your way to tier 10, nothing changed for you. It's the same. What did change is the Bloodseeker fight and also the reward, the carrot and the stick. Because we used to get 3,900 XP, now 11,600. Yeah. I need 28,000 to upgrade my glyph. Now I do like 2.5 dungeons and I got it already upgraded. Where before with 3,900, I'm going to be sacrificing my family to even remotely be able to make any kind of progress with the glyph. And that even as a full-time content creator. I don't know how you're going to do it as a man with a normal job, women with a normal job, with a family whatsoever. The biggest difference is the Bloodseeker fight. They're still chunky, they're still annoying. But now they can't have Vampiric anymore, and they can't have Suppressor. Which makes a lot of builds that were viable before or unviable before even more viable or viable at all. Because Bone Spear was not doing very well. Since, well, it couldn't really work through the suppressors and everything. Even my damage over time when there were like overlapping suppressors and some other shenanigans was feeling a little bit weird. Right now you notice how I'm not taking any damage at all, but that has a lot to do with me actually living in the Blood Mist. But that's not the only thing. I've literally tried just standing in the elemental damage and it's vastly less performant. I mean, they must have been absolutely overtuned because 20% less damage on a couple of gazillion damage they might have been dealing now means that they're doing normal scale kind of damage, which makes sense because before it was, I don't know, like I stepped out of a Blood Mist, I randomly turned around and suddenly I was dead for no reason, like from something that didn't kill me before, and I literally zero explanation. And we all know that the Necro doesn't really have any kind of like evasive abilities to go out of anything. So if I get hit, I get hit. You know, there's nothing I can do to kind of not get hit. And now it just looks like we're finally able to weather the storm. We're finally able to support. I mean, they're one-on-one, mano-a-mano. If I stand in elemental damage, I can still die. But this is vastly improved and superior to what has been happening before. And now I can invest 11,600, right? And I do one more and I already get another level. That means 2 levels in the span of 30 minutes. Before, we've been talking about 1 level in the span of 4 hours. If you're even able to beat this. Because now you could say, Pony, why are we not farming like a tier 8 instead? Because tier 8s are so simple. But realistically, it was like, oh yeah, you're going to do a tier 8, but there's a world where you die to random shebang. That being said, tier 8 is supposed to be super easy right now. So shall we take a quick peek as well? And then we talk about what the Necro actually does. With the big XP change, there comes also a change in attitude, carrot, and stick. Because before, there was no way how any casual player would ever attempt getting their glyph up. I mean, maybe get the glyph, boost your build to be vastly stronger, but never in the 9 hells are you going to in any way level your glyph up. I mean, we're talking about like 4 hours of game time, every single dungeon run giving you 4 item pieces. So you get 16 item pieces in 4 hours of game time. I mean, that's usually like 2 runs of Gregoire the Galvanic Saint and you get the same amount of item pieces and you could actually get an upgrade, right? Or some Duriels or whatever, and you're literally stuck in the abattoir with 0 progress on anything and no gold and nothing, and you know what I'm talking about. There wasn't any carrot. There was just the stick, and you could just shove the stick in your booty hole if you wanted to, and enjoy it. Or yeah, that was kind of like it, right? How much do you hate yourself, essentially, was the question. How much do you want to punish yourself to kind of like attempt or push this? Yes, this is meant to be the pinnacle endgame content. This is meant to be for the hardcore grinders. But if it's even impossible and painful for the hardcore grinders, what's the point? I mean, like, you know, I'm the full-time content creator, and even I was asking myself if I have any time, need, want, feeling to put in that many hours just to literally get one single itty-witty glyph piece up. I mean, the investment versus the reward was not worth it in any way. And yes, as you're noticing, tier 8 is a goddamn joke right now. What is this? I mean, compare this to tier 10. Tier 10, again, is the old difficulty. I mean, tier 8 is like, this is a cakewalk. I mean, not even a cakewalk. This is like child's play right now. If you weren't able to do any tier before, you should be going easy through as ever. When we did a tier 10 in the beginning to kind of show you that the difficulty is still there, we have the best of both worlds right now. It's easy until a certain point, and then that certain point, kind of you fall off the cliff and you get to get good. But that's what it's supposed to be, right? Like, there should be a challenge for the challenge, but there should also be an opportunity for the average gamer to still farm one. I mean, if you're farming an 8, we'll see how much XP you actually get at the end. You should be able to do that reasonable. And then when you beef yourself up, I mean, I did a tier 12 with essentially my glyph at level 6. Now I could get my glyph easy up to level 10 and then do a tier 12 easily, right? So I can actually level myself up to do these now easier, where before it was kind of like it's going to take me remote ages to even in any way be able to level up my glyph to a point. Oh god, that's a lot of fire enchanted. That is painful. Level my glyphs up to a point where I can even remotely attempt the challenge. See, damage is, by the way, still there, right? We're still taking damage. I mean, it's also because they have just very annoying affixes, but they're just chunking down. I mean, like, right? They don't have the HP to stand versus me. They don't have the HP to survive me, but they can still kill me, though. They die way faster, and now we're getting 7,000. Look at this. Like, what was this? 3 minutes to do this? I went from 7 to 8 in this stream, and almost from 8 to 9 now. And that's in the span of, like, making this video. I mean, I'll get this thing to level 50 in no time. And now you have a reasonable progression going on. Like, I can invest an hour to get a couple of levels on this, and then I can even attempt a higher tier because I'm doing more damage. Now we're still getting 2.16 on the next one. And yes, the increase is not much, but the increase is multiplicative. And currently we're at 95%. And then I'm going to be at 97%, 99%. But if I do 20 million damage per second, and I get another 5% multiplicative damage on everything I do, especially since the intelligence actually hires my all damage as well. Well, that's fantastic. But we're also talking about only needing this, you know, incremental more damage. I mean, I can farm another 5 levels. I can farm another 10 levels. I mean, I can get this thing to level 50, and then it's going to essentially beef up the radius it has, and going to take in all these glyphs as well, going probably with a range increase by bonus, another 50% multiplicative bonus instantly, and you're going to go crazy. You could reasonably farm this up and then suddenly beat the Abattoir of Zir. Now, what did we change with this Necro to make it even more performant to crank out that damage we're doing? And for that, importantly, we took 2 points out of Blood Mist. We had 9 points in there in total. 2 points out, that's 2 seconds less. That's still fine. And then we put them into the Grim Harvest. The Grim Harvest gives us now 6 essence instead of 2 essence, and I didn't have any other points I could actually put in there, sadly. Which leads us to never being essence starved even if 1 seeker is only remaining. Then we're also playing the Lidless Wall currently. Yes, we tried out different versions where we're playing the blood-soaked aspect to have more desecrated ground happening, together with the Desecration Paragon glyph that gives us 15% multiplicative damage constantly. Yes, that's fire. Or we used the Conceited aspect for 23% multiplicative damage with Barium, and then no Lidless Wall together with a Blood-Soaked Vera, which made us in total faster throughout the whole dungeon, but it just sucked away a little bit of our defense. Both versions work fantastic, but if you really want to use the Lidless Wall, put it on, swap over the ring, and you have the Blood-Soaked still, and the Blood-Soaked has the interesting part of making a Shadow Nasty Trail, that can also trigger Lucky Hit, your Litless Wall, and that makes even more corpses. Now, I have to say, though, that in total, you do a wee bit more damage with the Permanent Barrier up and also with the Vera. So if you're going for the Blood Soak then on your offhand. Also, the offhand can actually have damage reduction and even more lucky hit chance. So that is a double trouble super nice team. That being said, both are really fast. We just took 3 minutes for a tier 8. We could crank out another tier 8 to just have the direct comparison. And you'll notice how the 1 is a bit more comfortable to play. Because in the 1, I have my Bone Storms always active and I never have to care, right? And in this one, I essentially have to make sure Bone Storm, Curse, do my things to manually, always on every pack, reactivate my Bone Storm, because otherwise we'll end up not being Bone Stormed, not having Barrier, not getting the damage, you know, safety from things, and all of the stuff together. Now though, as you can see, we are just doing incredible amounts of damage, and that's another 23% plus. So I think for the tier 8, if we're looking to speed farm, if we're looking to just crank out this XP, this is what I would also say, if you're currently speed farming, probably tier 9s is what you're looking at. Because realistically, tier 10 works well, and tier 10 is a challenge, but that's exactly where the difficulty starts ramping up. So if you're just looking to quickly get the XP together now, if you want to level up your glyph to then be able to take on a higher challenge, everything up to tier 9 is farm, and that's so brilliant, because now we do actually have an existing farm, right? We do have an opportunity to farm, whereas before it was kind of like there was no safe farm. There was every single tier just the promise of death, because the dudes were overtuned, they were doing a little bit too much damage. The elemental, not the physical. I mean, the physical, we got like our 14,000 armor. If I drink a potion, I go up to 15,000. With a Litless Wall, I have 15,000. So we had everything going on, right? We were reasonably tanky. We were ready to never die. Well, but that's the problem. It doesn't matter how ready we were to never die. The game didn't give a squat, right? We still died. So yeah, this was like a little bit of a, and that's where also the frustration came from. Because if you went into a tier 1 and then you just randomly died, well, that's pain, right? I mean, who wants to randomly die in a tier 1? No one. Exactly. Especially not if you're able to clear tier 12 already. I mean, I just recently did a tier 1 to just represent something, and then some random elemental effect just tore me into pieces, even though it should be statistically impossible for that to happen. Well, the game didn't care that it should be impossible, you know, because, well, welcome to the Thunderdome. Now we're in 2 minutes, three minutes almost in, and we're already heading for the Seekers. So you notice it's a little bit faster with the Vera, but it's also like, again, we have to like constantly make sure that we actually do have our things up, you know, that we pay attention, that we care for our Bone Storm Barrier. And now against the Seekers, it's again like 10 seconds Bone Storm, right? Oh, two teleports away. This is going to be absolutely painful, because they're essentially going to be the whole time just bingo bongoing away from me, and I'll be having to make sure to somehow still be in the middle of these 3 guys and have them go dying. I mean, again, there is a lot of elemental effects going on, but you notice how our barrier is just enough, but how we're also like chunking out and cranking out like quite significant amounts of damage, you know, to kind of get Jimmy, Timmy, Dave destroyed. Goodness Christ, you're so annoying. Unfortunately died because of the lack of Bone Storms. Ha! Perfect example here right now, where the build is good, where the build is safe. I mean, you saw us do the other tier 8. Let's not say these were triple teleporting away things, so they weren't all together and my barrier was not maxed. But now if I had the Litless Wall going on, then there would have been multiple Bone Storms throughout the map, and they teleport away. But no matter if they teleport away, they're still standing in Bone Storms. Now, this was a combination of Seekers, which were uniquely annoying for this build. But with the Litless Wall, I could have made sure to work with that. So worst case scenario, if you encounter something like this, you can, quick swap this in. Quick swap this back. I mean, all in all, for the dungeon clear itself, it might just be smarter to play the Vera. And then when you're actually fighting the boss, just quick swap the ring. Oops. Just quick swap the ring around to then do these Seekers even safer. Because you don't need it for the dungeon clear. For the dungeon clear, you need speed. For the bosses, you need safety. Because the speed comes from overtime damage anyways. Yes, the Bone God build now should also work super good. Might still be a bit squishy. And the Blood Surge build should work even better because the suppressors are not going to be suppressing you anymore. And you can also stand a wee bit more on range. So both builds quite interesting.